Good morning, this is the Eager Beaver Show.
You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Miss V Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters. PsychicTarot.ca, book your tarot reading and unlock your spiritual journey. And the Pepper Master, hot pepper sauces made from farm-fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind. Well, good morning and hello, kids and cubs, and welcome to season 5 and episode number 300 and no, sorry, that's not correct. 741 of the Daily Beaver Morning Show. Do. Always 100% Canadian. This is also doubling as our latest episode of the True North Eager Beaver interview project. I am your host, the Eager Beaver, pronouns he, him, hey, Mr. Beaver, eh? And not with me as usual is my good friend, Mr. Grizzly. Today, recording day is Wednesday, September 17th, 2025, for broadcast on Friday, September 19th, 2025. And as you know, when we say interview, that means we have a lovely guest today. So I have someone to talk to, and today we really do have someone spectacular. But more about that a little later, because we have to thank our podcast funding sponsors, the Pepper Master, the Miss V Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, and PsychicTarot.ca. And of course, we have to ask you, kids and cubs, how is your mental health doing today? I am doing very well, although I'm having a little bit of a day. Tech is being very tricky with me, but that's okay because it doesn't matter. We just persist and good things happen. Today, we'll talk a little bit about Canada, but we're going a little bit more global because our guest is a foreign affairs journalist. She was born in Ukraine, grew up in Germany, but is joining us from New York. And we were very much attracted to her content because it is very clean, it is very clear, and it is very logical and straight down the middle, which is something that we try to aspire to do with our show when we curate news and provide commentary. But she does actual journalism. So we have some questions about what's going on in the world, but also about her approach to journalism and why it matters. So kits and cubs, we're not going to delay very long with the extensive introduction because we have a lot to learn today. So if you would, put your paws up and give a big round of applause for the Onest Network's founder and host, and of course, journalist, Olga Nesterova. There we go. And welcome. Hello. Welcome to the Beaver Lodge. How is your mental health doing today?
Doing good. I'm seeing you. You're so upbeat, and so I'm excited to, have a valuable information. And I hope that everybody who's watching us or listening to us today will leave with some insight today.
Well, I am very sure they will. We have a certain number of people that, as soon as I announced you were coming, were very excited. They've been following your work too. A couple of, I love her, and she does good work. So I think your reputation precedes you a little bit. But then again, we have a most discerning audience, if I do say so myself. Olga, I wanted to ask you, well, a little bit about you before we get into the topics. We
Mhm.
do have one thing in common, of course, that I found out through researching you is that we both have a love of dance, and you competed. I was not in competition dance, but you were, and you competed at a rather high level. I was wondering if you could talk about that a little bit.
Well, I started when I was 5 because I was a little tomboy, and my mother specifically, decided that, I should be dancing. So I didn't like it first, but then I liked it when it became a competition type of thing. It's like, you can grow, you can win things. So became national champion in Ukraine, and then ultimately that brought me to Germany, where I competed, became national champion. Won Open to the World and like all types of competition, which my main takeaway, I love dancing, but this was sports, and that taught me to be, consistent. That's the main takeaway. And I think that's what I also bring into journalism. Also, you focus on what really matters. As athletes, right? You learn to escape the noise and focus on what's straight ahead of you, to take it one step at a time and really to get to the result you desire. So that's learning that from 5 years old to up to 19, about 19,
Hmm.
was something that sort of set me up for what I do now.
Hmm. And because, as world champions, obviously, you have that discipline, you've got focus, and you're able to execute it at a very high level, that then becomes a transposable skill that you can bring to something else.
Right, right. And I think also, with I met a lot of people, right? A lot of different people, because I went from Ukraine to Germany. I didn't speak a word of German. People called me "yeah, yeah" because the only thing I knew for a bit, until I learned. Of course, as a teenager, you integrate very fast,
Right.
and when from Germany, I went to Netherlands for studying, and then ultimately I did a dual degree in the United States. I graduated here, did my internship at the UN, and stayed there for a bit. Now, um, what it taught me is that you have to be willing, physically and mentally willing, to integrate when you enter a society or a country. So I was eager to learn the language. Same in Germany, Netherlands. I was very focused on studying. The study was in English, so I also learned a bit of that in Dutch, but not that much because I didn't study in that.
Right.
Really coming to United States, I remember I was asking a cop for. I landed in New York, December 31st, 15, no, 16 years ago, and I asked for directions, and he said something, and I didn't understand anything, and I thought, oh, turns out I don't even speak English. So, because like
Accent and dialect.
right, right, and then you study, so it's like you go by the book, and then here everything is fast with accents. But then I was graduating in North Carolina, so that added a different type of accent. But ultimately you learn as an athlete consistency, but then as you start moving around, you learn empathy, believe it or not.
Hmm.
Empathy towards yourself. You learn that you have to treat yourself with a sense of grace. You're not going to know everything, you're not going to succeed in everything right away. And as an athlete, you do have this persistence, right? So that helps.
Right.
But really integrating yourself, hearing people's stories, learning about their culture, learning about what makes them tick, what really matters to them. Because the priority of Germans are very different from Americans and Dutch, right? And
Right.
Canadian. And sometimes recently we figured out, thankfully so. So, you know, that helps. And so ultimately I try to connect the dots in my biography that kind of like bring everything together and kind of make sense.
Hmm. Now, um, you have had a lot of experience after dance in various fields that have led you to a career in journalism and to practicing it in the particular way that you do, which is significantly different than what we get from mainstream media.
Mm.
I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about that journey because we were talking a little bit about the before the show, and you were teaching me. You talked to me about something that you had learned about how public opinion is shaped.
Right. And thank you for saying that. That really, really matters because I don't try to actively stand out from anybody. But my thought was not to get inside the, studying how CNN works or CBC works or anything and copy them. It was rather by what is needed right now and how can I meet the moment, right? And the story that you're referring for to is when I came to Germany. I didn't speak the language. I was good in math, but as any Eastern European person, you're good with numbers, but to a point.
Hmm.
But then, because I couldn't connect with children, right? And teens are so fast in judging you and going against you. And I was standing out because, my posture and I'm a dancer and this and that. So I was harassed and beaten up in school.
Mm.
But then at night, I was praised when I came into the dance world and training, and people wanted to, talk to me and engage with me, and they saw me as some type of leader. So as a teenager, I learned to realize that public opinion is very easily shaped by uh, circumstances, rumors, any type of measurements that don't really matter, right? Because it was the same me in the morning and the same me in the evening.
Right.
So that's where I understood that environment shapes the opinion.
Okay.
That's then my goal was to change the world for better. Now I'm laughing because that's nice. I was studying about, Eleanor Roosevelt, how she was um, very much contributing to UN and what later became UN. So my goal was to do my internship and come to UN, which I did. Long story short, I did in New York,
Hmm.
graduating in North Carolina. So, and there I attended all kinds of meetings. I also learned that diplomatic missions are not eager to attend meetings. They rather send young people because they're eager still to do the work,
Right.
which granted me access to Security Council, to General Assembly. I wrote the entire paper on how to change UN for better. We can dive into this. It was about maritime law. Ultimately, also in US, I added a couple of majors because I was at that point 21. Everybody was way younger, and so
Hmm.
I added political science and media law and European policies. That still was in Netherlands, and of course business management. So that gave me an idea on how to write and understand and negotiate and all that. But at UN, when you deal with diplomats, I had to first learn that your smile matters or the lack of it matters because people are reading you.
Right.
You have to learn to read people and be again observant and understand that no, you don't know everything and you will be making mistakes, but all you can do is have the right intention.
Mm.
If you set that intention across and it is clear for the person who's interacting with you that I'm here to do my best, I know what I know, I don't know what I don't know, and I'm here to openly communicate, right?
Right.
That opens doors. And fast forward now, years after this, well, let's go back. At UN Security Council, you attend different meetings. At some point, you end up in a meeting, or I ended up in a meeting where you negotiate the troops constellations when they're in combat. And there's a screen where just names pop up. And I asked, what is that? What is that? And they said, well, those are the badges. They scan the names of people who passed, right, in combat. And I, started, I guess, feeling some type of way. And it was a general who came up to me and said, look, one death is a tragedy, more than one statistics. Get that in your head or get out.
Okay.
I didn't get out that day, but this really, I mean, I'm grateful to him because that depicted the picture, right? They
Okay.
also used to say at the UN, the higher you climb, like in a tree, the less wiggle room you have because you're going to fall, right? The higher
Right.
you go, make less movements. Just deliver vanilla statements. Don't say yes, like that joke, right? When the diplomat says yes or no, he's not a diplomat. Um, so, like, be uncertain about everything. And at that point now, then together with the statistics and death and everything, I realized that I want to live life where by the end of it, I still want to look in the mirror and be proud of me. And your humanity matters. So if I become numb and I become part of the system, that I actually came here to fight because I
Right.
want to make the world better, not be
Right.
part of whatever shit show is going on. That just doesn't align with my priorities. So that was the decision to understand that I can pursue change from within by affecting communities. Now, how can you affect communities? You can do it through information. I'm
Right.
not the one to rally up people for political movements. I'm very shy. I'm an introvert. Like that's. I'm not shy to talk about something like now when I know I want to talk about it. I know what I'm talking about.
Right.
But altogether, I don't seek attention. I got that as a teen that was dancing a lot. So I'm not seeking any stage. So my point was, how can I contribute to society? Because let's get to the bottom of things. We, the people, in democratic environments, we elect the leader who's supposed to represent our interests.
Right.
Then we do have media that
Hmm.
should be asking questions to hold them accountable on their promises and to ask questions on our behalf so we can make better decisions.
Right.
That's the bottom of it. The clicks and likes and shares and being a celebrity, being a billionaire, gazillionaire. I'm not part of it. That's not how it started.
Right.
So in that regard, I didn't the way you just started the show. You don't get information from resources, right? From mainstream media or legacy media, whatever you call it. They don't ask questions that are bringing us forward. They're
Right.
trying to allow people to deliver pre-prepared statements. And I have been at the UN. I know how this works, right? They physically study those statements that they deliver, and then every time anybody asks a question, that just triggers, okay, that's this statement I have to deliver. And now this statement I have to deliver. But ask questions that are, beyond this.
Right.
Ask for their knowledge, their opinion, their judgments, right? Because they decide for us too, right?
Right.
So altogether, after UN, my point was to do something meaningful. And now, fast forward, when Black Lives Matter happened, and I wanted to do something that is not going to add more negativity, but I
Hmm.
wanted to do something that would make us feel whole. Because again, I know how it feels when you are harassed and mistreated in all kinds of way. I
Right.
know how it feels when people who you thought were your friends turn their faces away or pretend not to understand or hear because they want to keep their position. They don't want to really advocate for you because why would they? I know how it feels.
Right.
I know how betrayal feels. I know how hurt feels. So in that regard, what can I do? And I asked folks in the community, and they said, "Look, we want something positive." So I did. Then for it was like 72 hours, I put together a 12-hour marathon where African American singers and speakers and writers and poets del- delivered content. I mean, we gathered together, we raised money for NAACP, but the point was for people to tune in and feel happy
Right.
and feel at ease. Right at the moment where every time you turn on television, it's one violent massacre after another, right? And you also feel targeted. Now we can discuss what Black Lives Matter was and who made money off of it, and whatever. We can get into semantics, but the point is humanity. And so this live stream was the next thing was Stop Asian Hate because there was COVID, and again during Trump's first term,
Right.
and without advertising, we got 6 million views, which on YouTube, because people
Yep.
started the first broadcast and they wanted to contribute. And I had people who would ask, "Can I perform a song?" Right? Those were not celebrities or very famous people, but there were also people who could speak. Like, for instance, former Mayor de Blasio of New York, right? His wife was appearing there. And so some people
Right.
started engaging who were not afraid to have an opinion. But after that, okay, joy, fundraisers, nice. But I really want to get to the bottom of it, to get in terms of, in order to get information, you have to get to the source, as we call it, right?
Right.
And so I traveled to the White House and, later become part of the press pool. I cover Biden administration. We travel and all this summits and Congress, and, not Congress, summits and G7, G20, NATO, UN, right? You call it, you name it, we were there. Also his meetings and everything that's happening at the White House and State Department and all that. So that gave me an insight into how things obviously work, but also I could ask questions. And you know why? Because I didn't scream at them.
Ah,
Because if you see press poll and all of them going, well, and then harassing. I mean, with Biden, it was, by the end of it, it was harassment. Like
right.
literally, the day started with, "Are you dead yet? Can you produce a certificate that it's not a doll? Who are you? Why?
Right.
Why are you even here? Do you work? You don't work? All that stuff." Meanwhile, understanding where he comes from, he was working way
Right.
more than others. So, and I'm not advocating for any political movements, but my point was, it was sincere. Did he
Right.
did everything right? No. Did he do everything wrong? No. We can, get into things, but certainly we didn't start World War III or trade wars or harassed our allies or and ultimately lost them. We
Right.
actually built a coalition in the Indo-Pacific. We This was Biden's achievement, literally. It's openly stated that Finland and Sweden joined NATO,
Right.
that he created the land lease for Ukraine. So there were achievements. He also started the program for immigration, legal pathway to immigration. So there were takeaways. And of course, the economy started recovering and ultimately did after COVID. So there are tangible achievements. But because I wasn't screaming at them, like for instance, let's say First Lady Jill Biden's going somewhere. I remember she was with the wife of the president of Nigeria, and everybody started screaming at her, and I was just standing there like I can't participate in this. Like
Right.
this is below my decent level of decency and self-respect ultimately. And she turns and she says, "No, you ask questions, right?" And so for that,
Right.
they were very quick to understand like who is who, like any diplomat or political figures are, because they're so close. And then ultimately, and maybe the same is your experience is sort of same or alike, what I learned in this environment, that being kind, being decent, being polite and respectful opens doors. Because people say you need vitamin C, the connections, you need money, you need umbrella organizations. But I can tell you and I can show you emails for it. Being kind, respectful, and just focusing on what matters opens doors. You are a breath of fresh air these days if you behave.
Yeah, that I have to say that has been our experience to the T. Um, we just, COVID came around, and a lot of people's jobs kind of ended. I was in a field of work that required a whole bunch of people to be in congregate settings,
Mm.
which was not going to happen. So my universe stopped on a dime. So I decided to take my hobby and start this. I was just writing, and said, well, let's see if we can make a podcast out of it and see what happens.
Mm.
And trying to build a little bit of community, trying to have a little bit of social responsibility. We try to promote good mental health, and we try to bring, um, again, sort of, we're not journalists. We curate and we analyze news, but we try to bring it down the path, down the middle, again, using logic and rationality, a little bit of civics literacy, media literacy, political literacy, try to give that, but let people make their own decisions. Being clear about our own biases, putting them on the table so that you can take the best and leave the rest, right? You can make your own opinion. We don't try to convince you. We just try to put the information out there. We tell you what's our opinion, what we know for sure, what we're speculating about. But always trying to lead with kindness, building some community, trying to inspire in our audience that democracy is something that you do, right? That, you, and to build the community here that, where you can actually have a conversation about something that might be a little thorny or spicy, but with a group of people that won't first assume the worst of you if you say something, and that to take into consideration everything they know to be true about you from your past interactions, that you haven't just changed on a dime overnight, right? Willing to be gracious with one another. And in our communications, when we invite people to be a guest, and same thing when we ask people to participate in partnerships and all that type of stuff, it's the same thing. We always try to, write our communication in a spirit of friendship first, and, respecting people's knowledge and their expertise and wanting to get to know more about them, and, seeing, if we do respect their work, just saying, we respect your work, and try to extend the invitation. So, my friend Mr. Grizzly, who does the show with me and me, we're just two guys from Canada who just decided, there was something missing because you're watching the news and the painfully obvious question is not being asked, and there's a lot of people trying to pull the wool out of people's eyes. And there's a couple of things I know, and I figured, if I could put it to the service of a community, then maybe something could come out of it. And we're in our fifth season now. We got picked up for national distribution by a company only after being on in existence for 11 months. And there's a lot of people that say no to us because our name is not big, but there's a lot of people that take a chance on us, that have good reputations, and that has helped us enormously. So we've gotten by on the kindness of strangers from the beginning. There's no way this would have happened without it.
And this is beautiful to hear because so many people are so eager to go viral, and they believe that they're going to grow by going viral. That's where you're going to be put on the map. But in this environment where the CEO of Instagram openly tells you the main factor on something being viral or not is the amount of shares. Now, think about it, everybody, for yourself.
Mhm.
What do you share?
Hmm.
Crazy stuff, politically, crazy stuff, right? It could be crazy good, but that's very rare. I mean, in Canada now, you have Carney delivering, like nice quotes about hockey and like relating with people being human, and even if he says something and then he corrects himself, it's human, right?
Right.
Or somebody says, like, "Daddy, lead us," or "Big Daddy," or whatever. It becomes human. It's nice, right?
Right.
But then in the US, you share because it's crazy.
Hmm.
It's nuts. I mean, I shared, okay, from the London whatever thing, and Trump was in London, and I shared the clip when the horse, was walking in front of him and King Charles and just took a dump. That certainly will go viral. I
That's
have
funny
to
though.
share, right? I'm not talking. Listen, I can't go below to that level where I'm just going to talk about Trump being orange. I mean, like, listen, we all have eyes, but the point is, this will go viral,
Yeah.
but this will lead people to the page,
Right.
then discover a clip that is not viral, but that will have information.
Right.
So it's like with kids, right? Or animals, right? Not, I don't compare kids to animals, but the
No.
point is, if you want to feed them medication, you have to, like,
Sometimes you got to put some cheese on the broccoli.
yeah, exactly. Right. So the point is, how do you make your information accessible, but also it can be very dry. It has to have some type of humor and humanity behind it. Like, for instance, okay, the press pool and everything. What press pool does is recording. At that point, they were recording Biden. Then Fox News in front of me was editing those videos to make it look like he was falling.
Right.
I said, "Why do you do that?" He's like, "That's my job. I'm paid to do this." Meanwhile, we saw the same thing. The guy wasn't falling.
Right.
Right? So everybody's doing their own thing. Then you have the Russian spies all over the White House, right? So I speak Russian, so obviously they try to pursue, you in some type of professional way. So you have to, stand your ground. But my point was, I don't want to be part of them. I don't want to run. I don't want to ask questions by screaming. I want to be polite and decent and just be true to me, right? Okay. And then I ultimately produced the newsletter, which before, Substacks. But the point was to have a daily news briefing because I couldn't see facts anywhere. Because
Right.
you pick an article, there's this bit of information, a lot of watery opinion.
Yeah.
And so again, you're not presented with a coloring book where you can choose your own pencils and colors and edit. You're presented with a picture, right? And
Right.
everybody's talking about. So I put together this news briefing, which essentially was my thing to read out loud when I go live. So it's like, that could be a newsletter. National news, deep dives, quick news, global news, deep dives, and quick news. But and to make it free, because I do believe information is free. I always say that factual information is my love language, and this was important. During Biden times,
Right.
during the election season. The problem right now for me to put this newsletter together, and now I do have responsibility. We have
Right.
6 million readers in 122 countries. So subscribers are like prime ministers, heads of state, foreign ministers, also business leaders, and people like you and I who are just interested in factual information.
Right.
The problem that now it takes me 9 hours daily to put that goddamn newsletter together.
Yes.
Because everything that comes from the White House is, I mean, I can be quicker if I just flip it 180, then it's true. But the data is manipulated. It's not true. It's just there. If you open any press statement, first of all, it's often very just reposts from Truth Social, written in such a vulgar language. It's just weird. And especially getting that from the White House. And it presented facts, leading to, and now it's time to invade Chicago. And now
Right.
it's time to deploy National Guard. And now we federalize national troops. So it all just there to fit the narrative. Like if you were to go, like in school and you're in a math class, you look up the result, and so you tie your calculation so it leads to the right result.
Right.
That is the structure right now. So what I did was physically writing letters, emails to foreign ministries and their spokespeople all over, right? Canada, France, Netherlands, UK, Italy, Spain, all, right? Australia.
Right.
Now also with missions, because I'm New York based. So we have the UN and we have the missions.
Right.
Because I'd rather hear from them. Like when I went to G7, that Canadian government accredited me for.
Right.
I'm grateful for it. And the White House tried to pull my accreditation when I arrived in Alberta.
Oh.
And the White House banned me from the Oval Office. I'm not part of pool. And the
Okay.
White House did the most for UN not to accredit me,
Right.
which the UN, the high level week, starts literally tomorrow. Tomorrow, I'm all day at the UN, the Security Council, with the Brazilian government. They do SDG, the Sustainable Development Goals.
Right.
Anyway, but the point is, I have 27 events to cover, all accredited by different countries, but United States.
Huh.
And of course, summits like Clinton Global Initiative, and we
Right.
have the what's his face, the Bill Gates Foundation does a summit, Concordia, bunch of other things where also leaders are presented. I'm also part of the Council on Foreign Affairs, which is very high level diplomatic type of think tank institution in New York. And so Monday there we have a meeting with Mark Carney, also different leaders as well. So I have to really face globally to
Right.
get the information to Americans about America.
Right. Yeah,
This
it's
is
like
where
reading the report of a phone call or a meeting that your leaders had with the leader of another country. You read the output from the other country, and then you wonder, like, why did they mention that and we didn't mention this?
Yeah, I was at the G7 and at the hotel. I was at the same hotel where the Japanese folks were.
Okay.
The delegation heads of state were in a separate thing. They all were together. Aside from Trump, he was flying himself in, and then he left. So, but the delegations and Japanese delegation, we had a talk, and they were so excited. They were so upbeat. They were putting everything together, like to present the deal to Trump because the trade deal is so important for them. And think about it, for them, it's so tied together to self-respect.
Right.
And like this, the people who came up with harakiri. So.
Right.
It's so, it matters. They didn't sleep all day. Then they were like all bushy tailed to deliver the deal. Trump didn't want to listen. went to bed. Next day he came in. They wanted to talk to him, and then ultimately they were in the room, as they told me. And Trump said, "I'm bored. What are those numbers? I'm bored. Not interested." And you should see their faces afterwards. It was just as if somebody, in their family passed away or something. They were inconsolable. They were sad. Same South Korea, very upset, like they hurt physically. They couldn't, they didn't sleep the night. And then I saw them in the morning, the day, everything was over. And I said, "Did you sleep?" They're like, "No. Even though we have no results, we still have to report."
Right.
And this is the level of just standards there is high. And when you have, let's say, people coming from different countries to cover meetings, bilateral meetings with Trump, they produce, and then the White House report, the press pool has to share their reports. That's how things work. The level of their briefings is just so thorough, because they
Right.
include biography, they include like internal issues, national, why it matters, what they want, all that. It's just very engaging. And so for me to, I met so many wonderful. Yeah. So when you have international delegations coming into the White House, they
Yes.
also share their reports and their press polls. And so then you see like the difference of reporting and what they focus on, right? Like they're not focusing on the semantics, like how many Gilded Age things from Hobby Lobby have been added to the Oval Office. They're focusing on what they talked about and
Right.
what was decided. Hence, you are presented with different, what you mentioned, readouts from those meetings, because some focus on what they have achieved, the results or the lack thereof, and others are just there to fit. Okay, so my point was that when you have international reporters, they focus on what matters, and then currently the readouts for this administration, I feel, are pre-prepared and are based on the results they want to announce. Like a lot of deals, in fact, are concepts of deals, but
Right.
they treat it as an accomplishment. Like for instance, there was the most drastic thing when they came from European Union, right? The president of European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, was meeting with Trump, and then they announced, the White House announced, oh, $6 billion are going to come from Europe, and the Europeans were like, where's that coming from? Meanwhile, European Union Commission just calculated all the business investments that are done over years up until the end of Trump's term, what would be naturally done by European businesses. They accumulated to $600 billion, so Trump would have a number. And
Right.
that's how they tried to talk to him. They tried to speak his language, because it's all about the visuals, him being the king, everybody bending the knee, and him collecting and announcing big numbers.
Right.
It's often and most of times not supported by any physical collection of anything, rather than tariffs from Americans, because tariffs are essentially import tax. So, here you have.
Okay. So you said you were here at the G7.
Yeah.
Um, what was, because this was given the additional invited guests, Modi was here, the president of Brazil, Lula da Silva, was here, Mark Rutte from NATO was here as well. So there was, Cyril Ramaphosa from South Africa was here as well. So it was almost like a mini G20 in a kind of a way, more than a G7. What was your overall impression of how things stood at that point? And I can imagine also that, not only were the Japanese and other people disappointed, but when, President Trump decided he was leaving, I'm sure there were a lot of people that were preparing for some bilaterals that day that didn't get to have them at all. That probably didn't go over well either.
Well, the biggest thing at that point on the agenda, which is very relevant today, were the sanctions on Russia.
Okay.
And what they started with, Ursula von der Leyen first wanted to let everyone agree that first, the tariffs are taxing your own people. It's like, let's put it up front, let's all sign it, that we understand that the tariffs are bad for the importer, not for the exporter.
Right.
Because ultimately, the end consumer and buyer is bearing the cost. Trump said, "This is bullshit. I have my advisors. They tell me differently. You have bad economists and bad advisors. I'm not signing it." This is one. Second, for Mark Carney, it was very important to produce results, right? Because he's hosting for the first time. He's also, that's the moment where globally he stepped into a role of an elected official, right?
Hmm.
And that's, again, I can only observe. I'm not Canadian. I covered the election. So, given his background, he is a very pragmatic guy who worked with numbers, who
Right.
was explaining his decisions, again, with numbers. He wasn't in need, right, related to his biography, to be likable, to be publicly beloved and supported, right?
Right.
So it's a pragmatic guy who acts actually in the back, right? He's running central bank, one country or the other, who goes by the numbers, predicts what's going to happen, and adjusts his decisions accordingly. And this is what he does to this day. So a lot of things, because Canada, from what I feel, goes from very empathetic Trudeau, charismatic, empathetic,
Right.
Carney, who never felt the need to be likable and explain his decisions. Because he said, here's numbers. Why do I need to run around, shake hands, and dance and sell this?
Right.
It just makes sense, right?
Right.
But now he's elected official, so he has to be likable and he has to deliver the results and then learn the semantics on how people are learning about those results. Sometimes it includes a dance, sometimes it's a dinner, sometimes a handshake, sometimes it's a speech, right?
Right.
And he's learning it and he's willing to do it and he's becoming more sociable and likable. But the decisions are pragmatic. And this, in my, again, humble opinion, is very important and very timely for Canada right now.
Okay.
I do believe, because everything else runs like a reality shit show. So,
Okay.
right? I
Right.
mean, White House is a reality show. European Union is bending the knee, delivering those pilgrimage to Washington D.C. with gifts.
Right.
Then you have NATO guy with the daddy and this and that. So it's good to have a pragmatic guys, which him and Scheinbaum. I mean, you're like balancing us. You're like the moons, right? Balancing the U.S. But um, at the G7, for him, it was important for countries to agree. And so the biggest document was to pronounce Russia as an aggressor,
Right.
and second, to deliver on sanctions. He couldn't agree, he couldn't achieve either. Why? Because Trump felt that he is being very much pushed. So for him to stay that extra day, first of all, meeting with Claudia Scheinbaum
Right.
and making decisions there. Also, really talking to Japanese, talking to South Korea, talking to Mark Carney, delivering results, and then commenting on that was not part of the agenda. They needed some type of results, so they dragged very old executive order. He signed with Starmer. He came out losing papers everywhere,
Yep.
right? Calling Starmer the Prime Minister of EU, not UK. And then, oh, we signed something. There was just one signature, Trump's signature. It was executive order to start implementing the concept of the deal with the UK.
Right.
Bullshit. And so for Trump, he felt pressured. He had to make decisions on Russia, Ukraine. He had to make decisions on trade deals. So the easiest thing physically was to go to the bathroom and start tweeting that he's about to bomb Iran, which completely navigated the conversation. He comes back, people are like, "You're bombing Iran? Why?" So the conversation shifted.
Right.
And then it was this pretend emergency. He flies back to Washington, D.C., spends another 2-3 days tweeting around, and then bombs Iran or pretend, whatever, right?
Right.
So ultimately, what they produce is a document where they say Russia behaves as an aggressor, and this, we all condemn these actions, right?
Right.
Another letter with big words.
Right.
But again, for Carney, it was hence important that he could meet in person with Scheinbaum, he could meet in person with Modi. I know it wasn't liked in Canada, quite
Right.
understandingly so, but then understand that the guy is pragmatic.
Right.
Pragmatically speaking, we can even explain the recent occurrence of this Project 2025 guy, the Canadian version, coming to the cabinet meeting.
Right.
I want to hear what you think about it.
Okay.
Then I share what I think about it.
Okay. My sort of hypothesis going into it is that if you are a very pragmatic person and if you are known to be a strategist, which he is, if you're known to be a person that likes to take in as much information as possible, maybe even too much information for the level at which you're at, then you probably want a little bit of Sun Tzu. You probably want to know your enemy, and you probably want to have this guy come in because you're not going to ask Trump because he doesn't remember what he had for breakfast. You probably want to ask somebody from the Heritage Foundation who was a key point person in putting it together about what it really means, what's really in it, but also since it was published, um, and given the success they've been having, what else do you have coming that's not in the report? That's your part two, and just how serious are you yahoos in actually implementing it? And to try to get that from the horse's mouth as much as possible, so that as a pragmatist, for the portion that he's doing that's playing the long game, the beyond 4-year election cycle, because some of the things that he needs to do to reorient our economy is really a 10-year plan, if not more, starting on. Um, if we need to make some changes now, if we're doing a spread analysis of where we need to be 10 years from now, what do we need to change now to be where we need to be in 10 years, then we better try to get as much intel with all the stuff that happens in a room, that you don't just get from reading the report, the eye contact, the body language, the tone of voice, inflection, all those parts of a message that are not just the words, that you can only get those intangibles when you're in the room with someone. That was sort of my hypothesis of that was the reason.
So we are aligned.
We are?
Yeah. I think first, make somebody seen, right? The guy comes in, and when this person feels like I'm not being threatened, I'm not being, for them, like marginalized or pushed out because I'm compared to MAGA, I'm this blue MAGA, whatever. But I'm here and the guy was genuinely interested to hear, you then overshare. And main thing I think here is also to hear who are your supporters and most importantly, who are your sponsors. Is that Peter Thiel with Palantir? Is that somebody, from the Trump regime, which connected now, Canada is rethinking F-35s, deciding on the 22nd of September when Carney is in New York.
Right.
Not meeting with Trump.
Right.
And Canada is signaling that we actually going to go with Sweden in that regard. And White House says, there are going to be consequences. Like what? Like diarrhea? Yes. So,
Sure.
for that reason, if you hear who those people are behind the guy, because the guy is just there, right, to present, and he's just the mouthpiece. But who's behind it? What's the system?
Right.
Second, I think this is the part where it's a dangerous game, but it's a smart game if you can handle it.
Okay.
Where if you ban somebody without letting them speak or hearing them out, then you give them, remember I mentioned that like the MAGA world around Trump works on aggression, on fighting against somebody.
Right.
They are in power. They are the power. They really have all the branches of power succumbing to the White House and the regime. But they're still fighting against somebody, against Canada. They're fighting against Chicago. They're fighting against, everybody. So that's what keeps them afloat. So if you ban this guy and says, I don't want to listen to you, you are blue MAGA, get the hell out, you give them message to start raising money and build community. Like this, you can say, well, but we were welcome. The same story, like, okay, build Canada stronger, and then let's put the hub in Alberta. So Alberta doesn't have any cards anymore to talk about separation.
Right.
And memorandums and referendums and whatever. I mean, you can't really bring it up at this point, right?
Right.
Smith, I mean, that would be the dumbest thing possible to bring up separation. You're building a hub. The money is coming to us. So that you took the words out of somebody's mouth and just turned them to your advantage, which could be something, this Project 2025. Now, we need to understand that those are the crystal fascists and the techno, all these people, that they have a system. The system has worked in the United States.
Right.
It works very fast. They learn the ropes. They are prepared. So navigating it will take very, big attention to details, which I think Carney has. Again, we will see. I'm not advocating for anything. This is
Right.
how I would just tend to explain it. So we are aligned.
Okay. Wow. I feel smarter all of a sudden.
Why did you feel not smart?
Well,
You turn television, every time you turn it on, you're like,
no, just because it's, when the emotional reaction comes out and you get all the entire flood of it,
yeah,
he's betraying, why would we let him in, all that type of stuff. And like, there's part of me that says, well, maybe I wouldn't have invited him to the cabinet meeting. Maybe I would have invited him like to the Senate building or the East Block to meet with a couple of my representatives who would have reported back to me high level or something like that. I might not have drawn that much attention to it, but again, if you're sending that signal, maybe you do want to draw that much attention to it, right?
yeah,
In
yeah.
that sense, because that's an angle I hadn't thought of. But it's more like when you get that overwhelming reaction and you're sitting there and think, well, I see it this way, but I'm not seeing anybody at all saying what I'm thinking. And I mean, I said it anyway, but how confident I was, because I decided not to silence what I was thinking because nobody else was saying it. I was okay being, one of the few people saying it, but it's like, I think I'm right.
The point is that because of it comes from China and Russia, but it's very populated in America, the symbolic value of things, right?
Right.
The red tie and this, and symbolically, everything big. We want a parade. It becomes a squeaky parade, but okay, we did a parade. We want to have 7 Orsays traveling with the Marine One. Like, why are you coming to Alberta, Canada, where all you have is bears, and you fly with 7 helicopters in? This is not it's a natural, protected some type of area. You're
Right.
not supposed to be flying with 7 helicopters twice a day. You're
Right.
scaring animals at this point.
Right.
So, but it's the symbolic stuff.
Right.
But then there's so many fuck ups. Excuse me.
Oh, no, please. You're
Rolling red carpets for murderers. That's a symbolic value.
yeah.
U.S. Air Force traveling to provide consultancy and tips to Belarus and Russia preparing to invade Poland. And Putin personally thanking them and shaking their hands. And suddenly U.S. Air Force speaks Russian and thanks them in Russian. That's symbolic value. That's what
Yes.
Kremlin sees. Now,
Right.
Trump doesn't see this as important
Right.
because what he sees is important wholeheartedly. It's all him. Him walking in front of King Charles. That's important for him. But it wasn't important that, there was, he made the guy, the king's aide, essentially a king. He was walking next to him and Charles was walking behind, all, that was lacking was a bag or something for him to carry. But just like we see how they're dressed, all in black with weird hats and all of this. Those are symbolic values that this regime doesn't see and that
Right.
others do see. It's not about you. You're not a king. Nobody's looking at you specifically. People look at a situation. They see the whole picture,
Right.
right? When you look at a painting, you're not focusing on certain things. You're focused on the whole picture.
Right.
They don't get it, which is good and this is bad. But
Right.
it's good because it can be used for somebody against it.
Right. And it sometimes allows like-minded near-peer nations to communicate with each other without having to say words.
Oh yeah, but listen, at G7, the journalists were laughing when they saw Trump arriving with a lot of helicopters. The Italian guy said, "Oh, parade numero due," like it's the second parade because the day before he had the squeaky parade. So here all these things arrived, and the Italians like, "Hey, second parade!" Everybody was just bawling. I mean, at least in the press room, you're not hiding this. And of course, they didn't have the Fox News and whatever. They were the pool. They traveled with him.
Right.
But in like general room, everybody was having a good time. I mean, as good. Yeah.
Okay. So since then, there have been a lot of developments, and there have been some recent things going on. Um, the whole with Russia and Ukraine and everything, we had this Alaska summit, which had come, I believe, on the day that there was some type of Trump ultimatum that Russia had to do something by. And instead of doing that, they got the summit. So Trump got his moment looking like a big international diplomat. Again, we had the red carpet, we had the flyby, and all that type of stuff. And then we had that press conference at the end of it, which was very weird, where the president of the United States let somebody from another country speak first on American soil, which I know basic protocols don't work that way at all, which struck me as weird right off the bat. And apparently, reports that everybody on Trump's team that was there came out with ashen faces and looked like they were terrified or something had happened. And then we get a couple more ultimatums. We do get the sense that maybe Trump wants to do something because he slaps an extra 25% tariffs on India, which is buying Russian oil, which helps them fund it. So in one way, that could kind of hobble Russia, but then it gives them a 50-day deadline, which gets blown past. And there are a few more deadlines that have been blown past. And we get a lot of "I'm not happy" and there'll be consequences, but they never seem to come. So, and there was even talk of potential extra meetings out of that between Putin and President Zelensky, and then one that could possibly include Trump and maybe even some European nations. And we've heard nothing about that ever since. That's just gone. And meanwhile, Putin has just been keeping on doing what he's been doing all along, which is the thing he always wanted. Yeah, sure, let's have more talk, but let's not we don't need to have a ceasefire. We can just move straight forward, like to the complete end of the war, which means, of course, the ceasefire is usually easier to get to than an end of the war at the beginning, which means they'll never get there because he always has an excuse, which means he gets to keep on doing what he's doing. Seems like he got everything he wanted. Trump maybe got a 48-hour media high, and then what?
There's a lot to unpack. So first, the meeting was not to benefit of Trump. It was Putin.
Right.
Putin. And those are the symbolic values that do matter. I mean, historically, they do matter.
Yep.
Because what happened was Trump, first of all, invited a murderer who has been killing Ukrainians since 2014, who annexed Crimea, who is killing civilians primarily every
Yes.
day on a daily basis, who lost over 1 million of his own troops to get just 3% of Ukrainian land,
Yep.
who lies constantly, who is an international criminal, who cannot go to many countries or he would be detained. Canada had to do a special thing not to detain him for G7 with Trump, right? And then imagine
Right.
Putin coming to Canada and Carney rolling out in Ottawa some red carpet. But then here, the point, what matters, this wasn't even in DC. This
Right.
was in Anchorage. This was at the Air Force Base,
Right.
which is essential, and its entire purpose is to withstand Russian provocation and to see what Russia does. Because if Russia were to invade, this would be the easiest target because it's literally 2 miles away.
Right.
This was also essential because of the Arctic. And if Trump wants to do the Golden Dome, if you look at the map and you engage your brain, you understand Golden Dome cannot happen without Canada in it.
Right.
So this was just important not to allow the murderer, right, to be seen as as a valuable and equal negotiating partner. It's the same story why U.S. is not negotiating with Hamas directly because Hamas is an international criminal organization. It's terrorist organization.
Right.
So yeah, you have to use Qatar and Saudi Arabia and UAE to help you negotiate because you can't negotiate with them directly. You don't negotiate with terrorists. Now, and Putin has been, given the picture and label of a terrorist, deservingly so.
Oh, yeah.
Now,
And even way before Ukraine, right? You got
right,
Georgia and, when stuff in Azerbaijan, I think, and Armenia and all that kind of
right.
stuff. And he's got eyes on Moldova.
Exactly. So here, President of the United States is meeting him. So Putin becomes relevant suddenly. People are listening to him. And it all happens on American U.S. Air Force Base. And then you use not just the red carpet, you use American soldiers to roll it out on their knees. And so whatever happened there, we didn't get any information. Now, as to the press conference, yes, Putin spoke first, which is against the protocol, but let's not neglect that Putin was the only one with prepared statement.
Right.
Trump had no paper. He was not prepared. He was just there.
Right.
And from what I hear from people who were there, that they were shown some type of video, and that's where they ran away and were like, stunned. I don't know what they saw. Maybe PP tapes, maybe I don't know what it is. But the point was, Trump was put into place by an international terrorist criminal in his own home. And if to prepare this type of meeting, FSB, which is the Russian, equivalent of FBI, CIA, would have access to everything to secure the place.
Right.
So they have access. And then Trump put F-35s everywhere and let the B-1s, B-2s fly over. So FSB had to approve of all of it, have access to programming and software of all of it to secure the environment.
Right.
So afterwards, we had 5 illegal flyovers over Alaska by Russians, and the planes were intercepted, meaning like paraded away.
Right.
5 times. That's where I began joking. Did they forget a charger? Like, what are they doing? Then comes out that there were indeed agreements in this Alaska meeting. That is where Trump openly stated that they want to, first of all, drop the sanctions on Russia to the point where Russians can invest in U.S., U.S. can invest in Russia.
Right.
They want to use Russian companies to drill in Alaska.
Right.
They also want to use Chinese investment to drill in Alaska. Now think about it, you're in Canada, so you have this trio of doodles right next to you.
Yeah.
How is this aligning with NATO? How is this aligning with protecting the Arctic? So a year ago, the NATO summit with Biden, right, in DC. I was attending Google, whatever the Zoom meetings with Weiss, the second Secretary General of NATO. I was asking questions. This was still Stoltenberg there. What will happen if one NATO nation ally is invaded by the other? Nobody could answer because that does not exist. And it reminds me, when I was a student, we went to European Parliament. We did some work placement there. And I was asking, what happens if somebody wants to leave European Union? Because you don't have this written out. And they said, shut up. Nobody wants to leave it. Everybody wants to join it. And then Brexit happens.
Right.
So the same story here. If Canada is invaded by US, what will happen? What will NATO do? And then the question is, who is going to protect Canada? Because what Canada does is sending 2,000 troops plus to Latvia to secure the eastern flank, which has nothing to do geographically with you, but you do it just because of your goodwill, but also your sense of responsibility. You're training Ukrainians. You are the biggest presence in Eastern Europe. Now, who's going to deal with Canada? Now, we do have NORAD, right? Northcom and NORAD. Yeah, we use it to track Santa every Christmas.
Right.
But NORAD is actually here to protect Canada in the Arctic.
Right.
Now, do you know which planes, Navy planes, and Air Force planes are used to deport migrants? NORAD planes.
Mm.
So this has been pulled from the Arctic.
Oh, God.
So for that reason, yes, Carney is engaging with Golden Dome projects, whatever, winning time essentially.
Yes.
But the biggest thing was signing this SAFE agreement with European Union, and
Yes.
now collaborating with the Scandinavian countries, physically collaborating, drawing up plans. What if, God forbid, what's
Right.
going to happen and who's going to protect Canada? And that will be European Union, that will be Denmark, that will be Norway, that will be Finland, that will not be United States. So
Right.
for that reason, I do not think Canada will be buying F-35s. If, then they will have to change the programming, because everything that US sells that is
Right.
military aid comes with the circumstance of a third country validation, meaning you can buy a plane from me, but you have to ask me if you want to use this plane against a third country.
Right.
So Russia invades, worst case, right, scenario. Russia is doing something over the Arctic. You have to ask permission in Washington, D.C. to shoot it down. So not aligning. Again, all the hopes are on the pragmatism of Mark Carney to do what's needed without global discussion, right? Because diplomacy likes quiet, environments.
Right.
So, for that reason, that Alaska meeting was a complete disaster. It symbolically put Putin up front. It renegotiated everything that Biden built up, that our allies built up and spent money on. And then at the same time, Trump says to all the nations, you have to spend 5% GDP on military aid, which, okay, makes sense. Makes sense for Canada, because what I just described. Makes
Right.
sense for Denmark because of Greenland and Trump really wanting it. It makes sense because of Putin and, of course, the Europe, right? European countries. But where does this money come from?
Mm.
That's where I started talking to, directors of museums. I'm a nerd, so I like museums. I like culture. It calms me down. And then at some point, I thought, where's this 5% coming from? And then turns out, when I spoke to politicians off the record, and I spoke to directors of museums, it's coming from culture and arts. In France, the youth programs are defunded.
Yeah.
They're just relying on tourism. Italy, same. Spain, same. UK, same. Germany, alike, right? Because they're pooling resources into military defense, which all makes sense. And now we come to yesterday, the 19th package of EU sanctions
Right.
that is now indefinitely has been pulled on hold,
Okay.
because countries like Italy, Greece, Spain, France voted against banning Russians from entering EU because of
Oh,
tourism. They want tourism. Russians travel. Russians
right.
spend money. They do. Influencers are promoting, international brands. They need the money because they're now really counting on tourism. US is not counting on tourism because we mess around with immigration. Who's going to come here?
Right.
But that's another story. When I talk to directors of museums in the US, they say that, look, we have to first, Trump is banning. He's calling stuff DEI, right? Today
Right.
he banned from national parks and national museums any reference to slavery or any ethnicity rather than white.
Right.
So they have to get rid of those exhibitions, and they're about to ship it to China because it's very willing to accept those exhibitions and herewith attract tourists to China.
Right.
And so, and again, when we come to the point of who is the biggest winner in this, ultimately Trump betraying allies, tariffing them, screwing them economically, diplomatically, and politically, also threatening allies or now former allies, whatever, Canada, Greenland, um, and just in Mexico, not to that regard. He's not interested in South America, he's interested in more. Um, this is, yes, benefiting Putin, right?
Yeah.
Because Europe is having its own issues. So Ukraine becomes that big of a thing. But now we have drones flying over Poland, which is NATO. So
Right.
now NATO is deploying extra forces from Spain and Germany to the Polish border with Belarus. Now, Belarus is practicing and
Right.
practicing with whom? With Russia and with India.
Right.
And US Air Force is providing advice, and so is Hungary and Turkey. Turkey also part of NATO.
Right.
So the NATO alliance is being pulled and challenged, to put it diplomatically. But to each their own, so to speak. So now what's going to happen next is that the countries in Europe will have to hold to their money and their military aid because they know, oh, they're already flying over Poland and Romania. I will be
Right.
next. So Ukraine will have less aid, which
Right.
just again benefits Putin on his advance to roll over Ukraine. And why Ukraine is essential? Because he will militarize Ukrainians to fight further.
Right.
He's not gonna, because when people talk about, giving up land, negotiating, whatever, people living under occupation, women are um, mistreated in all ways,
Right.
physically and all, man as well. And then man will be militarized and will be forced to fight on behalf of Russia. Now, I was born in Ukraine. I was born in Kharkiv, which is on the border with Russia, Russian speaking. I'm the one who's Putin is allegedly protecting. But
Right.
the first night when this war happened, my house was bombed. And so,
Oh my.
you know, when I hear like, oh, just give him land, this is a no-brainer. Just negotiate, just do this. You don't negotiate with the murderer because
Right.
the murderer gets hungrier the more weakness he sees.
Right.
So, in that regard, it would make all the sense to defeat the beast in Ukraine, cut all the three heads of it.
Right.
So, it will retract. EU and NATO will win time to build up their forces because they've been sleeping for 80 years, doing nothing, relying on the United States. And United States can then focus on whatever we're doing. I have very grim projection, on everything that's going to happen here. But that's story for another day. And lastly, what's really important is that by European leaders traveling to Washington, D.C., again, symbolically, it's seeing the leader in Trump, pushing Zelensky to negotiate land. And I told you why it makes no sense.
Right.
It looked weak. It
Yes.
still looks weak. I can't explain, going against sanctions because of tourism and whatever, but it looks weak. And
Right.
it feeds the Russian propaganda machine. And the
Right.
Russian propaganda machine is heavily dependent on China. It's
Right.
not sustainable financially. It's really, Putin was traveling to China and just see, like entertaining everybody, behaving like a clown. It wasn't the Putin that was, elsewhere. He was asking for money.
Right.
And so China is benefiting. Why? Because Europe is in turmoil. It's going downhill in their eyes economically. United States is out of the game because we're doing this, whatever we're doing.
Right.
Nobody's protecting the Indo-Pacific, and
Right.
so they can emerge as the type of the global power, and they do care about it
Yep.
because historically, same as Japan's, that's very, connected to their self-respect.
And then you have the United States pulling out of a lot of nations in Africa with what they've done with USAID, which China was already moving in, but that
Yeah,
creates more territory. And then,
yeah,
in terms of, the poker table where the dictators sit, given what Russia's doing to its economy in order to keep the war going, it's getting closer ties with China, but it's essentially becoming a vassal state to China. China is at the
yeah,
same time eliminating competition
yes,
on that propaganda front by making Russia more dependent on it. So, and
yeah.
since China doesn't have to do the 4-year planning cycle like we do in democratic countries because we have elections, they can look 50 years down the road. They can set a goal and just wait.
And that's what they do because they say that we are an empire. I mean, their spokesperson, I'm subscribed to their whatever they're sending. We are, a nation that is older than everyone. We just wait and see, and we use other people and their sources and their physical resources to ultimately benefit our long-term goals. Exactly what you said.
So I have a question for you then with regard to Ukraine. I know that Russia was somewhat hobbled by what happened with Iran because now it's less able to supply Russia with drones. But on the other hand, now Russia doesn't only have Russians dying, but they've got North Koreans going in, and giving their lives at the same point. And we've got these increased sanctions. And I know that Putin's been doing some shell game stuff with the economy, trying to hide things, and at some point that's going to break. And I got the impression that was going to sort of break around what a year ago, around this time. But it seems that additional help that they've been able to get from China has been able to stave that off, and also from India and China being their two biggest markets for selling oil, and I believe South Africa as well as with some weaponry. If there's any available, although I think Russia might be using all of its weaponry right now, doesn't have a lot to sell. Uh, but is the relationship with China such that is China willing to bankroll and backstop Russia so much as to neutralize the sanctions, or would there be a time that China just turns around and says, you know what, this is just getting too expensive, I'm out?
Um, China's interest is China, right? They don't care about anyone in that regard. But I want to talk about drones. So Iran was producing Shahed drones. And what Russia did, they let Iranians build the production facilities with Russians in Russia. So
Okay,
all the drones there that formerly are known as Shahed are now called Geran in Russian, and they're produced in Russia, about
okay,
2,500 a day.
okay. So they weren't being produced by Iran and then being sent.
Very low cost. I would even go
Oh,
far as to guesstimate that Putin provoked Trump to bomb Iran. So Iran would be busy with their stuff, and Russia can emerge as a savior and maybe, provide them intel on nuclear capabilities so they can continue what they started.
okay.
Because that's what was their payout, right, to Iran. Intelligence, essentially, same as with North Korea. Um, you mentioned the drones, and then you mentioned this was some point. It was about China. It was about
Yeah,
drones.
well, the drones, I was wondering just how much Russia was being hampered because I'm trying to figure out. I was expecting that at some point Russia's either going to run out of manpower or run out of money at some point, or they won't be able
Money.
to
Yes.
fudge the
Correct.
numbers enough, and
Yes.
that would make it such that they couldn't keep fighting. But now, if China is helping and if they're bankrolling and they're right, so I'm trying to wonder like how much
No, I get it.
longer can Russia go, or is it infinite because China will just do it, or is there because China's thinking about China? Is there a point maybe where China can just turn around and says, you know what, Russia, sorry, you're just too high maintenance, and that's what ends and Ukraine ends.
Um, about the drones, they're now being produced in Russia. The other
Yeah.
point, thank you for reminding me, money. Now, it was last week. It was presented that the richest person in Asia is has been funneling money into Russia using the some type of companies that were registered in China or registered elsewhere. So he is allowing to Russia to essentially bypass sanctions.
Okay.
And this has been up to more than a half of everything Russia gets. So when we say Trump is tariffing India for buying oil, well, next it would be Saudi Arabia buying, but then going, bypassing this to India.
Right.
So all of that really does not disturb Modi. Look at the he was holding hands with dictator Putin in China.
Right.
Like heads of state don't really hold hands because of shits and giggles.
Right.
This was a message that we don't care, right? You want to tariff India? We don't care. Why? Because there are other ways to get money in, right?
Right.
And so this money could come from China, could come from Saudi Arabia. Like when the sanctions began in, when the full scale invasion of Ukraine began with the sanctions, to bypass that, Russian elites transferred money to sovereign funds in Saudi Arabia. That fund, by the way, paid for Twitter, partially.
Okay.
So this is just a research. You go one company, shell company, another,
Right.
and it ends with Gazprom. So altogether, Russia is very much influencing bunch of things by bypassing those sanctions. So for China, China is not here to grow Russia into a massive regime. For them, the idea is to make Europe burn and suffer for a long time so it is physically out of the game, right?
Gotcha.
So Russia is going to Ukraine. I don't see Ukraine losing by far at this point. I mean, 3% of territory. They will be pushing Zelensky to negotiate. They will be pushing. Ultimately, what Russia, I think, will be pushing for is to demand Zelensky to create some type of presidential election because due to Ukrainian constitution, federal elections are postponed if there is war. This
Right.
is not the case for United States, which Trump was very excited about. Not the case here, but in Ukraine that is the case. And so Putin is now demanding. Well, he never wanted to meet with Ukraine for the same reason
Hmm.
as to he doesn't see Zelensky as an equal to be worth negotiating with.
Right.
He sees Ukraine as some type of whatever, and he refers to Russia as Rus, but actually Rus was Ukraine, and Russia, Catherine the Great was great in stealing history
Right.
and renaming things and claiming, Odessa hers and all that shit. But ultimately, if you historically speaking,
Right.
Ukrainian language is far older than Russian,
Right.
and Russia is more of the more related to Mongolia than anything. So
Right.
the Golden Horde. But the point is, for Putin, he has to start delivering results or present to Russians that we have some type of wins. So pushing Zelensky to, let's say, uh, with connection with Trump, because Trump has influence on NATO, to say, okay, do some type of elections, and then they can push for a pro-Russian candidate to win.
Right.
Knowing Ukrainians, they're very good in gathering and burning tires and protesting. So Maidan could come, another orange revolution or whatever. But the point is, it wins time to accumulate forces. Then also, you don't know how other countries would relate. Do you think Poland will fight? Or maybe if Trump vetoes Article 5 and says, we don't see any provocation with drones, and then that's what Russia does, right? It just flies over and leaves. Then the drone will accidentally fall. Then somebody will hurt. Then more and more and more. And meanwhile, if US will start vetoing things, so Article 5 is never invoked because Article 5 is 3 points. First, all nations have to agree there was an attack on an ally. Second, they have to agree that an action is needed. And third, that they have to agree on the action.
Right.
And do you see Trump following through this?
No.
Right? And so if Poland is then not protected, if Romania is not protected, Baltic states are not protected, do you think they're going to fold or they're going to fight? Meanwhile, at that point, France and Germany and UK and everybody will start gathering their own forces.
Right.
And that's how you divide and conquer, essentially.
Okay. Oh boy. Um, since you were talking about it, let's go there. China was sort of flexing its muscle a little bit soon after, uh, Putin and Trump blew past the last deadline, after which there was supposed to be some type of consequence. Putin was in Tianjin with, I believe, Modi at that
Mhm.
point. I'm not sure if the leader of South Korea was in Tianjin or just at the military parade. But they had, I think all four of them were there. You correct me if I'm wrong. Where
Yes,
they
you're right.
where they had the meeting of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, which is something I had never heard of before.
Mhm.
Um, from what I'm hearing, the organization itself is not such a big deal or a threat, but the really big thing was that Modi was there after
Cool.
having had there was a fallout with China about some battle in the West Himalayas, I think it is,
Yep.
and then they've gone from that, I think it's like 7 years ago or 5 years ago, to holding hands, which is a total change. But then after that, there was like part two, which was the military parade in Beijing, which Modi was not at, but
But
Putin and Kim Jong Un were
yeah,
the guests of honor, and
yeah.
there were like 25 leaders of 25 other countries there. However,
But Modi wasn't there. He held a big summit on AI and got investment from all the Middle East people.
Ah,
That's why he wasn't there.
gotcha.
So he was playing the big guy with Saudi Arabia on one hand and others, let's invest, let's build AI.
Right,
And this is now India building its own AI, not sending H-1B workers to the United States to get the intel.
right,
And this is the same people who essentially, when Trump is tooting, investment from Saudi Arabia is building their own AI, but they're building it in the United States to use our intel.
right,
Right? It's not, I mean, they're going to employ Americans, but this is their stuff. The same story as now it emerges about the TikTok deal. The TikTok deal essentially is that China will still control the algorithm. It's going to be a new app, but it's going to be still controlled by them, the algorithm. But then through the investors like Larry Ellison of Oracle and Andreessen and all this sort of Twitter investors, Trump was also well, they say the government will have the share in TikTok. So
okay,
we're still selling the data, but we're just now getting money for it. That's the TikTok deal. So there is it's really the devil is in the details. And so here everything is for a buck, right? So for a Trump Tower in your city, you're gonna get whatever. What can you get me? Right? And that's why when Trump was saying that America, I envision America as a department store
hmm,
where people come in and can buy whatever they want, and I have great prices for everybody. He wasn't kidding. It
right,
was funny, but behind his funny and delusional things are actually carefully planted messages.
right.
There is less dementia and more propaganda. It's what I think.
Okay, okay. Um, so with what was going on in China, was this just a moment for Chairman Xi to sort of um, show that he had some convening power and that he is there is another, you don't have to go to the United States as being we are definitely becoming a multipolar world, and I am your diplomatic alternative to the United States? Was it pretty much just that message, or was there more in it for him?
This was worse.
Okay.
He was very straightforward. For a leader, for an Asian leader, very straightforward. He said 3 times in his speeches that the time is now to circle back 80 years and to realize that you put your money on the wrong guy. You didn't name America, but said that the country that you led built military bases all around your territories. The country that's supposed to be a peacemaker paid you back by tariffing you, bombing your citizens, and just acting erratically. So it's time to go back and put your money on the dragon.
Mm,
Trust us. We've been here for decades. We are not invading anybody. We're not tariffing. We're here for business. We're here, of course, yeah, we understand that they have a regime, they lie constantly and all of this. But this was the message. Stop trusting America. America failed you. And I mean, and this is the worst place to be as an analyst, where you have to say this guy's goddamn right. He has receipts. We're bombing Venezuela people, we're
yeah,
terrifying over the world, we're divesting from everything, we're letting developing countries be on their own and just face death.
yeah, he's driving many countries right into China's arms.
Right, right. And we're allowing Israel and sponsoring them to roll over hundreds of thousands of people. So he was right. And so all of them had to recognize him as the new world power. That is what happened. It happened at the meeting, at the summit. It happened at the parade. And then parade, there you get your visual confirmation. He's seated here. Then you have Putin. Then you have Kim Jong-un with the daughter, teenage daughter that's supposed to take over whenever time is due. Right? And so then you have the visual confirmation. Now, yeah, you have the TikTok deal. And as much as Trump will parade it around as a win, China will tell you what the deal is. We're still controlling it. It's just they want little money because, poor people. They will tell what the deal is.
Right.
So in this moment, this is like the worst moment where you have to listen to China and say that actually they're saying the truth. Meanwhile, they've been lying for decades. But at this point, and with Modi, the conversation where Xi Jinping was addressing him in that meeting, and he said, "Look, it's time for dragon and the elephant to unite."
Right.
And this is not just a metaphorical and funny reference. This is a historical reference.
Right.
You're an elephant here, and I'm a dragon. We've been here. United States wasn't even conceived at that moment, but
Right.
we were here. So what I guesstimate, with BRICS, I think what will be a big problem for them is still dollar as a world currency. So either they will make, either currency the currency, or introduce something very different, or push towards the cryptocurrency, but they will have to own the system, because system is still American. It still runs on American dollars. So
Right.
that will be the next step. That's where they cement what they started.
Okay. Okay. Oh, I didn't think so. Basically, that meeting signified, even though, let's say, public media hasn't caught up, China is the power now.
He said it 3 times
Okay.
physically in his speeches.
All right.
I put
I'm
it
just
in.
thinking of that movie there, Captain Phillips or whatnot. It's like, look at me, I'm the power now. So it's like, "Ee."
Right, right. And I mean, and that's the problem here, because if she, off the record, told them that I control Putin, now think about it, will Europe run to him? Because China is
Yeah.
benefiting Russia to do. All they have to do is close the drain, right?
Right.
Where now you see it, Belarus closed the border with Poland, China is losing money. Chinese foreign affairs, whatever, like envoy, was immediately dispatched to Warsaw and to Minsk to start talking to them. And then
Right.
after 3 hours, Poland did not agree. And China is pissed. And
Right.
mind you, China didn't go to Moscow first to say, Putin, stop the invasion, stop this joint drills.
Right.
It closed us business. No, they went to actually the victim, Poland.
Right.
That's how they operate,
Okay.
protecting the invader and harassing the victim.
Okay. Okay. Uh, since we're talking about U.S. weakness, there's a couple of things that I've noticed that strike me as a little funny. The first one is indeed what happened right over Poland with all those drones flying over, with Russia saying, "Oh, maybe it was a mistake," and it's like, no, that was not a mistake at all.
Mhm.
Um, I mean, flights out of the airport, out of the capital, had to be canceled, right? If you imagine that happening in Berlin or in Washington D.C. or whatnot because of drones, this would be a major, major, major incident that would generate a lot of activity, and there was really nothing out of the United States. Uh, in Ukraine, I think it is, Russia hit a U.S. factory
Mhm.
that, and there was nothing. EU delegation building, there was nothing. The UK Council building,
Mhm.
and then another one of the US's allies, Israel, uh,
Mhm.
bombed in Qatar, where
Mhm.
Qatar has been doing whatever it can for the past few years to try and be the intermediary, and thought that the United States was its friend, and the United States has said nothing. And then with the deadlines that have passed and all of that, all of a sudden it's just, and if you even add, trying to influence Brazil to let go of the case against Bolsonaro, and well, De Silva has no fucks left to give when it comes to Trump at
Yeah.
all. He's made that very clear. And then what he's done to the South Koreans with the Hyundai plant. So all of a sudden, I'm thinking like I'm hoping Mark Carney's on the phone with Brazil and South Korea and say, "Hey, let's be besties, because if you guys have no fucks left to give, neither do we. Let's get together." Um, but all these things, even the encounter with the journalist from Australia the other day, like this, I'm going to tell your leader on you that, it's like, really, like, just, can we just bring him in and change his diaper at the moment? I'm going to tell. He's at the point, I'm going to tell. Like, he just looks so weak and there's no response, and a lot of these things seem to be clearly giving, Russia a permission structure. Well, gee, we bombed 2 buildings, having to do with, NATO allies, and US interests in Ukraine, and we got a yawn. Let's keep going,
That's
right?
why when President of Portugal said that Trump is a Russian asset, and they said, "Why do you say that?" He said, "Because he acts that way."
Right.
And this is, I think, without conspiracy theories or anything that he said, she said stories. If you act that way, we can, okay, don't call him Russian asset, call him useful idiot, call him, I don't know, that he's
Dramatic.
benefiting Russia,
Right.
whatever you want to call him. But the factually, what is that if you see statistically, Russia started bombing civilians way more once Trump became president.
Right.
After inauguration, it went drastically up, and it's civilians. And now they're killing and hurting dozens of people every day. So at this point, we're not even talking about military operations, right? Because they're weak. Like yesterday, I got this stupid email from Kremlin, just their press, whatever, press pool. And it's a whole thing with, how they're going to defend themselves and eliminate typhoons. It's like a missile system that United States yesterday deployed for the first time in Japan. And they do these drawings, and they're going to use Iskander missiles, and they're going to do this, and they're going to do that. They're going to eliminate that, and they're going to knock it all out, and they're going to paralyze Japanese system. And then they somehow tie Mitsubishi into it, and we're going to just kill everybody and everything. But it's meant for uneducated and easily impressed. First of all, how are you going to drag your Iskander missiles to bomb Japan? You know where Ukraine is, where you gathered everything in Kaliningrad, and you know where Japan is. Like, do you know physically
Right.
how long it will take you to drag it all there? And on the way there, do you think nobody's going to do anything? But then, to your point, he can just speak to Trump and say, look, this is escalation. I might bomb Poland with the targeted nuclear attack, which their state media is advocating for heavily yesterday.
Right.
And then Trump will take away the missile systems, right? All of that shit show yesterday presented by the press pool, I was reading it and I was thinking, this is for Trump. This is for the White House. Because when they hear it and they start reading, oh my God, so many bombs, everything's fine. Japan, woo, let's withdraw. Why? Because you don't have people with appropriate experience. We started talking about Carney and him being pragmatic,
Right.
and we judge it by experience, right? By the resume, essentially, by results. The results of this administration are Fox News hosts, podcasters, people who generate buzz, clickbait. That's exactly what they're doing.
Right.
I mean, I don't even mention that like bunch of stuff is misspelled and all this scheduling and briefing and all that, but relaying wealth to on the tomb of Elizabeth II, not the wreath. It's everything doesn't matter here. But the point is, the weakness provokes aggression. We've seen it historically. We've seen it everywhere. And the problem is that the United States for 80 years has built its reputation as a peacemaker and stabilizer, put military bases all over Europe. Look how Canadian defense is related on the United States, the collaboration in the Arctic and everything.
Right.
Also, the Indo-Pacific now. Yes, Biden created this IP4 coalition, right, with Japan, New Zealand, Australia, and South Korea. But the problem is that now with Trump, this is a threat. Now you can't count on him because if China were to go in Taiwan, by the way, this is also part of Xi Jinping's message at that summit, that they put a clear deadline to get Taiwan by 2027, and they announced it.
Oh, I missed that totally.
I put it in newsletters. So,
Wow.
and this is a clear deadline. So for me, it was so surprising that China is so clear. I mean, they don't mention United States or Trump because for them it's beneath them.
Right.
They're way beyond, above everybody. But the point that they were setting deadlines, saying circle back. That's why Xi Jinping has been talking about history. We're going to rewrite history, First World War II history. That's why the parade, he celebrated the win over Japan, essentially, right? After or as a result of World War II. And that's why the summit was beginning the discussion from World War II. It was as if we're in 1944, 1945, not 80 years later. And
Right.
so that was like, okay, learn from your mistakes where you trusted America with no history, no dignity, no values, no structure, essentially, what he says. But, and then to go with us and see what we did in those 80 years
Right.
and how much business we gave you, right? And then just because the problem again, we don't have people who run the operation at the White House who have the experience nor knowledge, nor quite frankly talent to run it. And so everything is just becoming, one apparatus that runs on Project 2025 that they follow to the T, right?
Right.
But the point is, we are excluding ourselves, and that's the isolation. And the United States doesn't function with isolation. It's the place where people are going to build businesses, to grow, to connect with others. It's the melting pot, right?
Right.
But it doesn't work in isolation. China works in isolation. North Korea too. They're built that way. So you can't copy paste whatever
Right.
China or Russia is doing, because United States is completely the opposite. But that's what Trump is forcing United States to become. And then it remains to be seen what that will be, because we don't have production. We're not self-sustainable.
Right.
So in isolation, how's that going to work?
Right. Right. Indeed. And not only are you not self-sustainable, but you are currently arranging things such that if you ever got to the point where you would be ready to interact with other nations as if a nation that was self-sustainable, nobody wants to deal with you because you're untrustworthy. And like, for example, if you're looking to Canada and says, okay, we'll take that aluminium now. Well, we're sorry, we've already rerouted that. We have got a contract for the next 35 years shipping
Yeah.
that to so sorry, but you're out of luck.
I mean, I
It
have
won't be there.
and to quote Biden in that regard, he said, "Look, when he was asked about relations with Canada and Mexico, he said, look, if you look at the map on this continent, it's just us, Mexico, and Canada.
Right.
Those are our direct neighbors. That's it. That's who we trade with. That's who are our best friends. If world came into its end or whatever, those are the neighbors that are on the same piece of land as us. Period. End of story." And that was just so pragmatic,
Right.
even though Biden wasn't pragmatic by far. That's what essentially knocked it all out. Very empathetic. I believe like history needs its heroes,
Right.
right? And so I haven't covered Trudeau, but I compare him and Biden a lot
Right.
in that regard. They were very needed in one time.
Right.
At this time, deservingly so, with all love and respect, you need pragmatism.
Right. Right.
You
And
need to clean the house, not make it pretty.
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And you're right. At that time, we needed that because we got out of the 2008 crisis and there was already a lot of austerity. And, we needed to focus on people at that point. And, now we're an existential threat. So we're back at the bottom of the pyramid of needs. We have to make sure that, we're going to be able to eat and house ourselves and ensure that we have jobs and whatnot. And we can't be um, aspirational in any sense other than wanting to be the best at doing that before we can start thinking about other things, because we have some guy south of us musing about annexing us, which is not fun. I can tell you.
Yeah,
Right.
no,
And
absolutely. And I mean, everybody has to stick to their strength. And this is a huge strength. Empathy, of being able to rally people up and excite them and unite them is huge, right?
yes.
This is what Carney would never, I mean, never say never, but it's not his strength. His strength is what is now. So I'm just very happy that Canada made right choices, because with the apple eating pee guy, as much as experience he can have with throwing poop in the parliament, not very useful.
Yes, indeed. There's two subjects I want to touch on, and we'll finish with Canada. But the other one is clearly, what's going on in Gaza at the moment.
Hmm.
Um, on the previous question, right? Qatar was bombed, and they're supposed to be an ally, and they were working as an intermediary because, like you said, you can't talk directly with Hamas, so you have to, go through Qatar, the UAE, or any of those nations. Um, I can't help but notice the parallels between Putin, Ukraine, Netanyahu, uh, and Gaza. I also more aware that the way that because the democratic structures are different, or the political structures are different in Russia than in Israel. Netanyahu, first of all, has his self-serving purposes that he doesn't want to go to jail. So the longer the war lasts, the less likely he is to go to jail. But he's also somewhat cornered, because even if he did want to take his gas off the pedal, he's got the even more militant than he is wing that would just pull support from him, and which would probably create another election or something, because it isn't a big majority. And then if he loses that one, that increases the chances that he goes to jail. So he's kind of on his knees
Uh,
serving even more radical elements. And I mean, if you're the type of person that already believe that he's the single biggest obstacle to peace, before the more radical element had them cornered, um, I don't see how anything changes. And I also don't see how any other nations, again, except for the United States, if it was going to cut off aid, which it's probably not going to do, has any real power to influence what it is that Netanyahu is going to do. I see all the protests in the streets here. Yes, and yes, we protest against genocide. Of course, we have to say something, but it isn't going to be until like the US joins the fight, almost like was the situation in apartheid in South Africa. And then at some point, it fell. And when the UK finally joined. But it just seems that all of us saying, oh my God, that apartheid situation is so terrible. Like this, let's have some sanctions, but it still continues unless the two big players don't do anything. And I mean, if Israel's going to bomb Qatar and the United States isn't going to say anything, what immediate hope is there? And I don't want to sound hopeless or despair, but if we're being realist, this is not going to end anytime soon, regardless of how much noble protesting is going on anywhere.
I think, first of all, Israel says Trump greenlit the bombing of Doha, right? In Qatar. Qatar says, well, Trump says, no, we didn't know. But then on the other hand, White House says that they have dispatched, as they said, um, Witkoff to Doha to warn them.
Right.
Doha says the warning came as the bombs were flying.
Okay.
So Trump is very much mixed into this.
Right.
This could have been, again, coulda, woulda, shoulda, could have been assigned to Doha to know its place and to stop mediating. Trump also wants Trump Gaza. He put the videos with the golden statue and everything.
Right.
It's funny until it's not. He's very
Right.
much interested in that piece of real estate, as he refers to that. Now, we're disregarding that 1 million people were there. This morning, 500,000 people were there, 300 fleet and all that. So, with no place to go. So, what are they going to roll over them? Just create one mass grave? And so, um, before we even discuss that, I just want to mention some facts,
Yes,
right?
please.
What we should agree upon. Israel or Jewish people suffered during Holocaust. Holocaust
Right.
happened. It was horrible. They died. It's horrible. Yes, Germany still pays the dues and apologizes and recuperates. Fact. Israel was hurt on October 7th. Fact. Horrible, unprovoked, kids, all that. We know this is a fact. They retaliated towards Hamas. Um, justifiable, fine. Hamas came into power as an elected regime, so to speak, in 2016. Then they dismantled the constitution and stayed in power forever.
Right.
Because Hamas was, and if you look at the pictures or videos of Palestine before Hamas, it was a very like Iran before the regime, right? Before the Muslim regime. You know, women dressed very, Western-like and all that. It's a very, very liberal society. So, because Hamas is in charge of Palestine, and this I know because of the UN and the meetings with Palestinian government at that point, countries stopped trading with them. They
Right.
stopped doing it's isolation, exactly what we talked about.
Right.
Because of the isolation, people start they have no other opportunity, and I'm not excusing them by far,
Right. Right.
but they have they are now forced to work with Hamas, right? And so the members, the family members, fathers, sons, daughters, wives, are joining Hamas, right, and become their members in order to sustain themselves and literally pay for their food and the roof over on top of their head.
Right.
So they become the part of the regime. Now, fast forward with this, when we say Israel is bombing Palestine, kids and people are dying, of course, there are misrepresented reports and numbers on both sides,
Right.
from Israel and from Palestine. What I did not like, what Biden administration did, and altogether international community, they allowed Israel to investigate Israel. And
Yeah.
obviously that came into, was not intentional. That was the biggest, admission of anything.
Right.
Ultimately, yes, Hamas is using citizens as human shields. And if you want to destroy those labyrinth and like everything that the tunnels, right, the infamous tunnels on the hospitals, you have to bomb the hospital to destroy the tunnel, and then people will die. And this is the situation. We
Right.
understand. Now, the question is why Palestinians are not fighting? Why aren't they running away? But then where are they going to run away? If Jordan closed the border, Egypt closed
Right.
nobody wants to have them. So where are they going to run away?
Right.
Even you in the Western world, you have a car, you have a house, you have a job. Can you run away to just the north of your country? Just because you will come up with different problems. Even
Right.
us, we
Right.
live safe self-sustained. So in their regard, they had no place to go. Yes, they have Hamas in the tunnels. Yes, the family members work for them. So what I want to also mention that by the end of Biden administration, this was January, inauguration was January 20th. This is January where Blinken, at that time, Secretary of State Blinken, is negotiating together with Gordon and others representing the U.S. Government, the National Security Advisory Board. They spent month at that point, at least one of them, month in Israel, negotiating with Hamas through Qatar. And what they came up with, and at that point, this was the day of the inauguration, where Hamas agreed and Palestine agreed that they're going to create a different control regime in Palestine. So essentially,
Mhm.
you don't negotiate with Hamas because they're a terrorist organization. So somebody has to come and become the leader, right?
Right.
You can't rely on Palestine. Palestine, there's a king, there's royalty, but altogether they created that the police, the Palestinian police, would be sponsored and receive aid from France, from the UK, from also United States. They will start controlling the region, and they will start pushing Hamas out. And Israel will also agree and will help on that mission.
Okay.
This is what Biden administration agreed upon in January of this year.
Okay.
And Israel agreed to it,
Okay.
but didn't sign it.
Mm.
That's why hostages were released by Hamas the day of the inauguration, which Trump, attributed to him as
Right.
an accomplishment. This was part of that deal. Now Trump comes to power, has a talk with Israel, and Netanyahu essentially says, "Look, if we roll over Gaza, you might have that as real estate," and sells this idea. And Witkoff, the special envoy to the Middle East and Ukraine, Russia, whatnot, again, we come back to his resume and his experience. He is a real estate guy.
Okay.
So understanding that the special envoy to Middle East is a real estate guy described the entire intention of this administration about Middle East real estate.
Right.
So what we're facing now, and that's why Ukrainians feel some type of way that Israel gets so many weapons and Ukrainians gets nothing, right?
Right.
And it's like if Ukraine had the same capabilities that Netanyahu, then the question comes to mind, exactly to your point. Netanyahu tries to stay in power for longer because he's facing, his court trials and whatnot, to the point where he agreed to do prostate surgery instead of going to court, and court was postponed when he ran out of options to delay it. So, with all the capabilities that Israel had, do you think they needed 2 years to roll over Gaza and eliminate Hamas? Look at the map.
Right.
Right?
Right.
So at that point, now he has a green light. He is doing offensive. Yes, UN recognized, declared
That there's genocide happening.
at least 2 occasions of genocide conducted by Israel. But the point was, now he has a green light, so he's rolling over Gaza, probably knocking out 500,000 people. And so what we need to ask ourselves today, whether you are Jewish or you're Muslim or you're Christian, whatever, whoever you are, God bless you, is it okay to kill 500,000 people? That's what you need to ask yourself.
Right.
Just today, we're not talking about pictures of children. We're not talking about the October 7th. We're not talking about Holocaust. I just told you, all of those are facts.
Right.
The fact today is, are you okay with that? Because if you are okay with that, karma is a thing. If you're okay with this behavior, if you're facilitating it, or you're not denying it because you want to keep your peace and quiet, then this circus is going to come to you. Circus travels, right? And so then what I hear from Europe today, from the analysts, that once the Gaza thing will be acquired, we just said murderers and dictators become hungrier when they
Right.
have, wins and victories.
Right.
The next point for Israel would be Iran.
Yeah.
And that regime is shaky, running out of money, and all that stuff. So it's very not much probability that they will stop there. They will probably go straight there. And then if you look at the map, where is Iran? Where is Israel? So it can then become a very massive war. To the point where, again, think tanks, European think tanks today declare this as the beginning of World War III.
Okay.
Because that will pull so many resources, right? To hold it. You have UAE, of course, you have all types of engagements. You have French, you have UK. So then you have, again, Europe split. Middle East, Ukraine, right? Then the next thing, all you need is Xi Jinping taking over Taiwan, so US can maybe go there or not. Who knows what state of affairs we're going to be. But, well, Ukraine, forget about it. That will be a stepping stone.
Right.
And I'm Ukrainian, so that's not easy to say. But the point was, if and that's such an example, with the European countries and missed time. And this is attributed to Biden too, by the way. When a house next door burns, you run to fix that problem. You don't run to get water to eliminate fire in your house because you're next.
Right.
That would be the dumbest thing to do.
Right.
But that's what Europe did.
Yes.
And it's just consequences of actions and inactions. And now with Netanyahu, with green light and unlimited US support, and mind you, Trump said, we want to sell stuff. And what US sells is military aid.
Right.
So wars are profitable.
Yeah.
And that's sort of, there is still hope. I mean, they can pull together. I do believe that NATO is capable to knock Putin out at any moment. And the point is, you don't have to bomb Moscow. All you have to do is push Russian forces out of Ukraine.
Right.
That's all you need to do. And then you listen to Putin, threatening with nuclear attacks and this and that and the other. Do you know if his nukes even work? Because that's the same nukes he got from Ukraine in the deal in 1991.
Right. Okay. The final one is coming back home here to Canada. You've seen with the interactions between the United States and Canada over the last little bit. A lot of Canadians here have got our elbows up, our backs up too.
Saw the signs in the grocery stores. That was precious.
Yeah.
For the beliefs.
um, do you think my hypothesis here is that we have we wanted to try to get to a quick deal early, uh, thinking along the traditional business lines that, we need security, we need stability. If things are going to change, just let us know how they're going to change. Can we make them better? No. Okay, tell us what the deal is. This is what's going to be the deal for the next 5, 10, 15 years. Okay, we'll plan based on that. And then we realized somewhere along that way that Trump doesn't actually want a deal. He wants the drama. Right. And therefore, we have to do other things. So our initial, counter tariffs, which we also thought other nations would join us in doing, and then they didn't. We were left standing alone. Thanks, friends. So, that may not have been the best thing overall because, well, counter tariffs, like you said, we're paying those. And, well, if somebody's trying to hobble our economy, maybe that's not the best way anymore, but fortunately we did put them in the place because that gives us some leverage, something to negotiate back away in certain ways. But it seems that right now, Mark Carney, the relationship is that Trump is not insulting the Prime Minister Carney like he did Prime Minister Trudeau. Now, I don't know if it's just because he likes celebrity and because he doesn't really have many banking options and hoping that if he sweet talks Carney, maybe it'll help him get some more money somehow, or, but what we're doing now seems to be realizing that there is not going to be any deal and to try to drag things out as long as possible. So yeah, sure, we're open to talking about the Golden Dome as if it's ever going to happen. But sure, we'll talk about it because why would we say no? That would just get us back up and give us another. So we're sweet talking, we're playing nicey as much as we can, but really what we're doing is trying to mark time and buy time so we can try to reroute stuff as quickly as possible. We're in a good situation because we're the country that has the most free trade deals with anybody else. We've got 15 deals that cover 51 countries. We've just never maximized them, but at least we don't have to do the legal architecture. That part is done. So it makes us a little more nimble, which is an advantage that we have. But it seems that our best thing right now is like stalling for time and trying to establish these different types of relationships and trying to use more of our materials, trying to have an industrial reset in this country so we can create jobs and economic activity, but to try to get as much 2-for-1 as we can. So something that will give us jobs now that will also be able to help us export more of our stuff to the countries with whom we're diversifying. A deep water port that might assert Arctic sovereignty and allow for trade through that port, but also allow for military operation in that type of sense. So we're trying to get as much as possible, maybe trying to move forward on carbon capture and storage, try to do it more efficiently than everybody else so that we can not only do what we need to do for our own environmental footprint, but that we'll have some IP that we can sell as well as with the product. So everything seems to have 2 or 3 layers embedded with it, and moving the climate fight from things like interdictions, like you won't be able to sell these, to a more sort of climate competitiveness agenda. Well, why wouldn't you get your copper here? We have a zero emission smelter and you want to export your products to as many countries as possible, and there will be a carbon border adjustment mechanism. So, and if you buy from us, you will get the credit for having made the choice. We'll get the credit for the process that reduces the emissions, but you will get the credit for buying source material that has lower emissions, and everybody can win. So, and trying to do so in a calm, rational, reasonable way so that slowly the trade patterns move from the United States to us because we have the things that people want. So it's almost like we want to become economically, over the very, very long term, a little bit what the United States was for the rest of our partners, is what I sort of see him trying to do.
Mhm.
Do you see that as a good strategy for us?
Long term, absolutely.
Okay.
Short term, also. But again, we need to understand that we go, I don't want to say that prime ministers are like nannies, but anyway, you dealt with somebody of a very different type, and now you're a new, well, teacher. Put it as a teacher.
Right.
You had a teacher who was empathetic, who was like, hoopla, I'm going to give you a star, I'm going to give you this, I'm going to give you that, yay! To somebody who says, okay, so today on the agenda is this. You're going to study math, and math is important. Okay, questions? Why questions? It should be focused. And you're like, huh? What happens is different. It's different. So you need to trust but verify. But
Okay.
from what we see, what you just described are very logical steps. I can get behind logic.
Okay.
This means, like if somebody tells you, listen, you're overweight, you got to go on the diet because it's going to hurt your health. You want to live longer or sufficient amount of years. You got to, you don't want to do it. But you saw the numbers, you're like, logically speaking, that makes sense. And I might complain and talk every day that I hate doing it, goddamn salad, but if I'm doing the right thing every day, this will accumulate to a good result.
Right.
And that's, I think, what you're doing. Yes, you are hearing voices that are complaining from the liberal side because it's different. It's just a different approach,
Right.
right? One was motivating you. The other one says, why do I need to motivate you? Don't you understand? It's logical. They're just very two different people. As to Trump and Trudeau, if you see Trump and Trudeau right next to each other, you understand why Trump hates him.
Right.
It's visually
Yes.
very understandable. The point with Trudeau again, his thing is empathy. So when he was, heard about the whatever, right, the tariff and whatever, Canada, like with fentanyl or whatever the bullshit, he traveled to Mar-a-Lago to speak to him. This was the empathetic thing to do.
Right.
If you say to somebody, "Hey, Olga is an asshole," I'm going to call you and say, hey, let's meet up. Let's have coffee, tea, whatever. Let's talk about it. Let's fix it. That's the normal behavior. But normal behavior with an a-hole doesn't work. They see it as weakness. They
Right.
see it as bending the knee. They see like you crawled to me. And so next is Governor Trudeau, whatever, right?
Right.
So I did not like the way this all happened. This is just my angle as observer. I didn't
Right.
like Greenland resigning. I didn't like all this backstabbing situation for no reason. Trudeau apologizing and like leaving and whatever. He could have just said, "I'm not going to run for re-election." Why do you have to step down? All of this, right? Which essentially worked for the best, right?
Right.
Plus, Trump, God forbid, Carney got extra time to show who he is
Right.
because he was an unknown. He was sort of like a dark horse. So he showed what he is. So you knew who you're going to vote for, and you
Right.
decided to vote for him. Very nice. What I didn't like the approach. That picture was Trudeau saying in Rideau, how you pronounce it, hole, crying, the handing the resignation,
Right.
in the same hole where he grew up, and all of this. This was painful.
Right.
I'm an empathetic person. Guy did not deserve any of it. Absolutely nothing. Yes, I understand different times demand different types of heroes.
Right.
He's young, he can come back, whatever, right? Canada changes, you go through different, point taken. But he did not deserve this treatment. Period.
Right.
End of story. Again, from my humble observation. But again, worked out for the best. I would say trust the process. What you do makes sense. Now, You not just drop those tariffs that would have hurt you first and foremost. Yes, people who are looking for symbols. Oh my God, Canada dropped the retaliation and the tariffs and whatever, but that would have hurt Canada. Engage your brain, right? I mean, that's why we need media that just states the obvious. Tariffs are a tax on your own importer and consumer. They will not hurt United States. That will hurt you, right?
Right.
So if Carney was all about, symbols, he could have shut down electricity during Super Bowl for United States.
Right.
My electricity right now is coming from you. So it could have been this, right? But this, PP measuring contest is not really what Carney is about. He
Right.
sees that this is waste of time, right? And he says, I think it was like a quote off the record or whatever, like every day I wake up and I, sit down with my agenda. How can I make Canada stronger? And negotiating with Trump, who changes his mind every 5 seconds, is waste of my time.
Right.
Makes sense. It's logical.
Right.
It's the same story when Xi Jinping says that U.S. is like an obnoxious, crazy person. It's true. Now here, this is true. Now, absolutely, I agree with your point that every decision has multiple layers to it, short, middle, and long term.
Right.
Also, Carney is traveling, of course, to Mexico. At this point,
Right.
this airs, he is in Mexico, so we're going to see what's there. Of course, it's going to be about trade. Of course, it's going to be about open trade, right? Of course, it's going to be about how you can bypass the United States so you're not tariffed twice.
Right.
And then also what Mexico today triggered and Canada is reviewing the
Kuzma deal.
Kuzma deal or
Yes.
whatever you call it now, CMC,
USMCA.
USMCA, yeah. Which supposed to be reviewed in 2026.
Right.
So they triggered it today. Mexico also is seeking public opinion. Canada is about to seek public opinion.
Right.
This will waste time. This is exactly the time that you mentioned where we're going to talk and negotiate and blah, 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 blah. I wanted to have a conversation, maybe I will, with the former president of Mexico who signed Kuzma
Yes.
and Trudeau who negotiated it, right? All of
Yes.
this. Trump. I got in touch with the Mexican part and they said, well, like how long this was? Because we had to agree on every single circumstance. Like, what if something is shipped from Mexico through Canada, through US to Canada? What if something got damaged? What if? And all these clauses.
Right.
This is thousands of pages.
Right.
It's not a deal that White House seeks. So for that reason, for Carney to say we have the most reliable agreement with the United States from everyone except for Mexico is absolutely true. Again, he is not seeing the need to explain it like this, to chew it and let people digest it, because he always worked with professionals.
Right.
Bankers, economists, analysts. He never had to explain the obvious.
Right.
Now, I think he does. I mean, he's being coached. Maybe he would have a spokesperson who would be explaining, almost like, but you have to meet people where they are. Because
Right.
if people feel that you are, although I know you know what you're talking about and you're deciding, but you do not include me in your decision-making process, but we are a democracy and I'm supposed to vote for you, then I'm going to call you arrogant.
Mm.
Because you don't devote your most precious thing, time, to explain to me why what you do matters. Because we go back to the conversation where it started. We elect leaders to represent our interests.
Right.
Media to hold them accountable. Now, leaders are elected. They have to explain themselves. They are elected leaders. Kings don't have to explain themselves, or officials like central bank, heads of central bank, whatever. So take the time, explain in very simple terms and language, right?
Right.
Have companies, maybe have series. I was reaching out to a bunch of companies in Canada to do Made in Canada, like about different companies. And I did 2 interviews with different companies and different parts of Canada. But show different companies how they are affected by the by tariffs. and what it means to somebody that this retaliation tariff is dropped. Show it that now I can keep my business because Carney decided to do that, because
Right.
that would have hurt me. Has
Right.
nothing to do with the United States. So go a bit more, right? Not by producing more reels. I see all the leaders are doing reels now and all this beautiful, like it's like a voiceover reel or music or whatever.
Right.
Have serious, have actual people speaking. We can relate to people, right? Why do we say that Canadians are nice? Because you wear your heart on the sleeve. We know you are empathetic and you are human. So talk about it. I think this is your strength above all. And this is what will help silence the blue MAGA situation. Because currently they're loud.
Yes.
And the Carney part doesn't think it's worth paying attention to because we're doing the right thing. Why do we need to talk about it? And yet you do, because of democracy.
Right.
Demos kratos, right? The people rule, and the people rule by talking. That's how we express our ideas, and right. So I would just humbly suggest, and I'll do my best on Monday. Talk more,
Okay.
not explain yourself in a way that you have to win, love, or whatever.
Right.
Include others as if they are with you making that decision. That
Right.
would be just so useful. But steps, absolutely right. I do think you're not going to be part of Golden Dome. Neither I think US will, but whatever. Um, I do think you're not going to buy F-35s. Maybe if you will, watch this. If Carney says we're going to buy F-35s, this is just because he knows US cannot produce F-35 because I put in my newsletters and I'll send
Mm.
you those. I have Canadian parts. I did even Canadian news every Saturday. Anyway, the F-35s are postponed by 3 years
Yes.
because of software issues.
Yes.
So if Canada says, "Oh yeah, we're going to buy F-35s," in 3 years, Trump is gone, one way or
Mm.
another. So if
Oh.
that happens, you can say, "Yeah, we're going to buy." Yeah, right. When you deliver, we pay in 3 years.
Yeah.
Do you know what's going to be in 3 years? Maybe there will be another war, and who knows?
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you mentioned that because that was the other thing that I was thinking as well is that if we're watching other nations reach these concepts of a deal in which they are willfully already sacrificing something, this before there are legal decisions that say that they have to or anything of the sort, it might be better to actually take the hit on the tariffs and hope there's a new administration with whom you could make a better deal of some kind rather than conceding something now that you wouldn't be able to claw back later because once you make a concession, the country that got it has no reason to give it back, really.
Yeah, and I think it was masterful. If you know anything about British diplomacy, how Carney met with Trump, what he said, if you would just read the conspect of everything they said, right? The
Right.
read, it was smart. It was to make sure Trump hears what he wants to hear, but you don't say what he heard, right? It
Right.
was like, we're the most impressive leader. It's true.
Yeah, we're impressed.
Oh, we all are very impressed to the point of diarrhea every day and
Yes.
a lot of vomiting. Um, like I always say I want to be sponsored by what's this pink thing? Pepto. Pepto would be great. Pepto and ibuprofen. I would be demonstrating it every live stream. Um, and I guess that's with our healthcare going into shitter, that
Oh,
course.
yeah.
No eggs, just ibuprofen and Pepto. Just eat it too, because you eat it, you drink it, you're gonna throw up. Who cares?
Oh,
So
Olga, do you have anything to say before we end that you think that our viewers should be aware of, or like a piece of wisdom that they should keep with them as they're taking the news, or something that's coming that they should really look out for that will be important?
I always say keep your head on a swivel. You
Okay.
know, I really strongly, I beg you, you need to understand that you decide what you consume. The same way you decide what you put inside your body, same is you decide on how nutritious is the information that you consume with your brain. The information is what feeds this, and it ultimately builds your world perspective. It affects your mental health. If all you do is playing a role of spectator in this information bubble that where you were so carefully placed into, and you are now playing the role you never auditioned for,
Right.
you're being taken for a ride. Just mind you, look, you can write like on paper, how do I feel? I watch this, I feel like this. I watch this, I feel like this. And analyze it, right? Or you can just go inside yourself, meditate on it, and realize, okay, everything I watch just contributes to me going deeper and deeper into depression.
Right.
Understand, if you are not here for you and your loved ones, nothing else matters.
Right.
Here's an example. I'm an aerophobe. I had a bad flight once. One engine died. All this.
Ooh.
Um, and so I'm scared of flying. Physically, just because it's trauma, and what I did the statistics. I know all of this. I did meditation, everything. But what helped me is to understand the following. I'm sitting here. I don't like turbulence. Turbulence will happen. It's part of flight.
Right.
Turbulence is part of life. And now we are in a very turbulent time. We are in turbulence. Fasten your seatbelts, right? Don't
Right.
move around, but don't spread your energy. But what I know is this flight is going to land in a couple of hours. But if I have a heart attack in the meanwhile, or I don't survive, well, then wasted opportunity.
Right.
So this crap will end. The turbulence will end one way or another. We hope the best way.
Right.
Make sure you are there, fully able to enjoy the good part of life when this is over, right?
Right.
So take care of you, because only this way you can take care of others, and that comes with limiting your information. Put yourself on a diet, information wise. Pick one source or two or whatever who deliver facts. I feel like a party pooper every day. I go live and I do facts, and it's like makes people want to vomit, and that's just the best result. They're like, oh
Mm.
god. So I always end with a good video, like cats or dogs or whatever. Or like yesterday, I showed Mexico, Viva, all that stuff, and
Right.
cried. I started, for me personally, I saw people being so, negative and they're just upset, honestly. And I started Sunday edition, which is no politics. And there
Mhm.
I pick one topic like curiosity or joy or whatever. And I explain it from the point of body, mind, and soul. And I recommend some movies and books and whatever. And it has nothing to do with politics. And then I started curating culture. That's when I go to museums and interview directors and they show exhibitions. Because if
Right.
that goes away, at least we have some type of library. And I started it just from my egoistic point of view. I had to do something else than this.
Right.
And because I will rather work than go to opera or museum because I'm busy, and I have this every Sunday. So that holds me accountable to do something but politics.
Right.
So
Yep.
find something that you can stick to, whether it's dance, fantastic, yoga, meditation, whatever. Politics is not everything.
Right.
The media wants us to believe so because it makes them money. And social media is free. And remember, if something is free, you are the product. So that's my advice.
Thank you so much. That is very wonderful advice, and we do agree with you on the idea of having something different. We regularly do a pubcast where we just go to a pub and chat about anything except for politics
Nice.
and religion, just to say, it's like we are well-rounded people. Yeah, I'm a political junkie, but there's other stuff going on in my life, and politics isn't my entire identity. And you need to be full. You need to know what's going on in the world so you can make the best decisions possible. But you also need to be a full, well-rounded person and enjoy this life.
Absolutely. I join in when it's next time.
Oh,
All
please! I would love that very
right.
much. Okay. Olga, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for sharing your knowledge. I hope we can call on you again when something goes on in the world and get your opinion. Love your insight, and thank you for being very generous with your time today with us.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. I'm in anytime. You got my contact.
Excellent. And if we can help you in any way as well, we would be. Our motto is, if we can help, we will. So just call on us if you need us for anything. We would be more than glad to show up and say, how can we help?
Thank you. Let's finish
Okay.
where we started.
Yay! Big round of applause for our guest, Olga Nesterova. Thank you so much. Have a lovely day. Have a lovely weekend. And until we talk to each other again, may everything go well for you, and may the sun shine in your life, and may uh, everything smile upon you. All right. By the way, tell them where they can watch your show.
Oh,
I forgot to do the important part.
Onest, honest, for those who can't spell. Onest. Usually Mega lands on it because they forget the age. Anyway, on YouTube, Onest Network, Onest Network. I do just factual briefings Monday through Friday. Now with UN, I'll be at different events. By the way, check out those events. If you feel like you would want me to go deeper, I'll come and share it with your audience. There's a bunch of political things with UN related. Um, and the newsletter is, if you're on Substack, just look for Onest, Onest, or go to honestnetwork.com. Monday through Friday, it's free. So you can read factual news, and it's very much world oriented. There's US part, but world oriented.
Excellent. Good. Glad we got that part. I was going to let you go without telling the kids where to find you. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll talk to each other real soon. Bye.
Thank you.
Kits and cubs. Olga Nesterova. There you go. I told you that we would have tons of content that would be interesting and that would make you think, and someone that brings, again, a slightly different angle, slightly different perspective, but likes logic, likes facts, likes clarity, uncluttered reasoning in order to get there, and, also a practical view, right? Yes, there is history, but there is what's going on right now. And do you agree with what's going on right now? And if you don't, then, well, maybe you should say something or even get up and do something about it. Um, what's not to like, right? Kits and cubs. That's the end of this episode of the Daily Beaver Morning Show and True North Eager Beaver Interview Project. We hope that you love listening to us because we loved making this for you. Remember, sharing is caring and word of mouth is priceless. So please tell your peeps and poops all about us. It really makes us happy when you do, especially when you include a little word of yours about what resonated with you, because remember, you are influencers in your own circle. There are people that look up to you for what you think. So please use your influence. We would be very grateful for that. If you would like us to help you, kits and cubs, well, hey, maybe you're on the go and you're not able to watch us live in the morning with the DAMFAM or at your own convenience because you're out there making the world a better place. Well, don't worry. We've got something for you, thanks to the Ray Girl, who sponsors our pod page. That's podpage.com/the True North Eager Beaver with a hyphen between each one of those words. Or you can scan that QR code that's appeared. And when you go there and click on subscribe, when we have something fresh off the podcast bandwidth, it comes to your favorite podcast feed and you don't even have to go looking for us. We just wait there demurely, thoughtfully, for you to find us and then put us in your ears and take us with you. That way you can multitask. See, we like to help. Now, kits and cubs, if you would like to help us, then please, at the urging of Kits Cassie and Kit Elaine, take your e-surfboard and make your way on down to the True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated YouTube page. That QR code that just appeared will bring you right there. And while you're there, why not click on our buttons, like, share, and subscribe. Lick 'em, click 'em, flick 'em. It makes us very happy when you do. Plus, it helps us with the algorithm. So thanks for that. If you would like to help us in other ways, we do incur some costs to bring this show to you. And if you like what we do and would like to send us an enthusiastic expression of encouragement, we would appreciate that via our coffee page. That's coffee, ko-fi.com/eagerbeaver, all in one word. And you can make a contribution to what we affectionately call the Eager Beaver Lodge Emergency Hydration Fund, where every day we fight the scourge that is dry beaver. Remember, a moist beaver is a very happy beaver. So if you would like to do your bit to keep your favorite beaver moist, a couple of toonies or loonies in the tip jar when it hits the bottom makes us feel so good. Thank you for your constant generosity. Without you, we would not be able to bring this show to you. Because democracy is something that you do, kids and cubs, remember that we have a provincial election coming up in Newfoundland and Labrador on October 14th. So get to know your candidates, phone bank, volunteer, knock on some doors, or call Elections Newfoundland and Labrador and see if you can do some work at a polling station. It's something everybody should do once in their life just to see how other people experience the democratic process. Trust me, you will feel very good about yourself after having done it. Also, remember, if you are in Alberta, forever-canadian.ca. That's the website you go to if you want to find out where are the pop-up signature places for the Citizens Initiative to get that on the ballot for a referendum question that would keep Alberta in Canada. Mr. Lukasik does need your help. Also, if you would like to become a canvasser, please do that. Or if you need to make a donation, because it does cost them some money to do that work as well. And every dollar helps. So please, if you can, do that. And of course, remember the Our Commons petition that over 14,000 Canadians have signed in order to hopefully encourage our politicians to be more honest and have some consequences for them if they are not. And hopefully I will have that right here, and I will be able to put that address in the chat for you kits and cubs so that you may see it. There you go. Actually, I'm going to have it scroll on the screen today if I can do that since we are not live. What else do we have, kids and cubs? Well, words of wisdom. We'll take them from our guest today. Make sure that when you are talking about your informational diet, that you are consuming nutritious elements that feed your brain, that give you knowledge, that also feed your soul, and don't overeat. And it's okay to fast now and then as well. But make sure that it's not garbage in, garbage out. All right. So be judicious, have a little bit of discernment. And like I said, take some breaks. It's a marathon, not a sprint. Sometimes you need to step out. Don't worry, pass us the baton. We'll run a leg for you. And when you're ready, come back. Okay. All right. Mental health, most important thing. Remember, kids and cubs, it could be a tough world out there. So please be kind to and gentle with yourself. That's all we have for this week. Come back to us Monday. We will have more stuff for you. Hopefully, it'll be a somewhat calm weekend because right now, sometimes there's just too much damn news. But until we see each other again, amour et bisous. And we will see you very, very soon. Have a great weekend, everybody. And now, oh yes, silly me. Since you are not here, I have to imagine that you have said, Mr. Beaver, please cue the cock. So let's say that you did. And as always, as your humble servant, I am happy to oblige. You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters, CanadianTarot.com, their uniquely Canadian online eclectic tarot community, and The Peppermaster, hot pepper sauces made from farm-fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind. We are grateful to the Crier Media Network for its support, Pete Jarvis for our artwork, and Paul Joseph Something for our opening and closing sequence music.